What's going on, guys? So as the wait for Warlords of Draenor is getting shorter and shorter, I thought I would do a video on the top 5 things about Warlords of Draenor that I am most excited about. So at number 5, I chose the lore of this expansion, and the reason why I chose this was because we're going back to a time 35 years ago where these really epic, story-impacting characters such as Grom Hellscream or Durotan or Gul'dan were really in their prime, and the decisions they made in that time really shaped the way the world for us is today. This is especially good because anyone who may not have played the old Warcraft games before World of Warcraft will be able to learn a lot about these really epic characters and why they're so epic in the first place. And since this is an alternate reality Draenor, the events that are going to happen during this expansion are not the same as what originally happened. So this opens up a lot of possibilities for Blizzard to go to create more expansions. So I think ultimately this is a very smart move. So at number 4, I chose no flying in Draenor, and this is something Blizzard said they were going to do for this expansion, even once you reach level 100. And I think this was because with the Mists of Pandaria, once you reach 90, you're able to fly within the continent. I kind of diluted the scale of a lot of the environments that they had built within the zones. Now this doesn't mean Blizzard won't add it in a future patch, so maybe in 6.2 or 6.3 we'll be able to fly within the continent, but at least for the 6.1 launch we will not be able to fly within the continent. Now this is something that I'm actually really happy about, and it seems like kind of a small thing that people are kind of getting over right now because there's still flight paths and things like that, but I think the fact that you're not able to free fly within Draenor is just a very cool thing because it kind of revives that whole exploration feature of World of Warcraft, and it makes the world feel a lot more alive. So if you look at the Timeless Isle, which was released in 5.4 and hugely successful with the WoW community when it was released, you're unable to fly on the island. And what's cool about it is that you've got tons of these hidden treasures within the island and rare spawns that you can go and kill. Some of these rare spawns you need to group up with several people to go and kill. And there's a lot of cool quest lines that give you unique rewards. A lot of these things require you to go out of your way to obtain, so one thing that comes to mind is the end of the Rolo's Riddle quest line, which you have to use one of the birds to get up to this very high point on the island, and once you get up there you can complete the quest line, and there's also a rare spawn that spawns up there, and if you kill him you have a chance of getting a unique reward. So I think because of this, exploration in this expansion will really become a new thing within the community, just kind of passively. And I think this is a really cool thing. I love doing it. And it just seemed like once you hit 90 on Pandaria, you pretty much have explored the entire continent. I mean, sure, there's some rares and some Easter eggs you end up finding later, but for the most part, you pretty much explored every nook and cranny of the continent, and it just kind of started to get more and more dull after that. It would also be really cool to see Blizzard add more rare spawns or more hidden treasures within Draenor as the expansion goes on, kind of like the Zandalari Warbringers in patch 5.2, to really get you out there in the world exploring and doing more things. So at number 3 we've got the World PvP Zone Ashran. So Ashran is a zone on Draenor that is purely dedicated to a ongoing 24/7 PvP deathmatch between the Horde and the Alliance. There are certain objectives you can do in Ashran for your respective faction, but the cool thing about this is that, like I said before, it is 24/7, always ongoing. You can pop in and out whenever you want, and Blizzard has designed it in such a way that one faction will never become so overpowered that the other faction can never come back from it. So the Horde can't control all the bases at one time, so that the Alliance have absolutely no chance of coming back. There's always a tug of war kind of going on, and I think that is where the like famous streamers, NPCs come into play. So like if the Alliance are getting completely destroyed or whatever, that's when Swifty and Bajira come in to help the Alliance out and kind of keep that balance going. So this is something that I'm super excited about, and I really felt like this was something that was missing from Mists of Pandaria, and would have been a really good time to have something like this because a lot of the storyline from Mists of Pandaria was the conflict between the Horde and the Alliance. It's also just good extra content. Like at the end of Dragon Soul, when things were really still winding down, you still had Tolbrad, and even though it kind of sucked in most players' eyes, it was still extra content, and it was a nice thing to kind of pop in and out of once in a while, just for fun and to get some honor gear or whatever. So at number 2 on my list, I have garrisons. Now, this seems to be the most anticipated feature of Warlords of Draenor, because it's essentially player housing on steroids. So garrisons are in a predetermined location within Frostfire Ridge and Shadowmoon Valley, depending on if you're Horde or Alliance, and it's not so much a house that your character can live in or go to every once in a while. It's more like a small city or a base that your character can control. So within your garrison, you can have many different buildings to satisfy different roles. So you may have a fishing building, you may have a mage tower, you may have an engineering building if you're not already an engineer as a profession, and as the expansion goes on, you can upgrade your garrison to different tier levels. You can also have followers within your garrison and send them off to do different missions, like do a dungeon for you to collect some standard loot, and that might take like a day or so, or you can send them off to do raids, which will reward a little bit better loot, maybe raid finder quality loot, but that might take like a week or so, and you can also send them off to gather crafting materials for you. So the cool thing about garrisons is that as soon as you get into Frostfire Ridge or Shadowmoon Valley and start leveling up and start questing, then you're going to get a quest to go to your garrison and start working on that right away. So you don't have to wait until level 100 to begin that. Blizzard also wants to keep the fact that you have a garrison and that you have this really awesome base tied in with the main story progression of Warlords of Draenor. And so it's not just the separate feature of the expansion that's kind of just a standalone thing. It's very much part of the world, and it feels like part of your experience within the expansion. So at number 1 on my list, I chose Mythic Raiding and the new raid structure for Warlords of Draenor. And I'll bring up a nice picture here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So as you can see from the picture, that the flexible mode released in 5.4 is now becoming the normal mode in 6.0. It's going to work the same way, and it's going to have the same type of difficulty. It's just now called normal mode. And the normal mode in 5.4 is now becoming the heroic mode in 6.0. So once again, the difficulty is pretty much the exact same, it's just now being called heroic. And it works the exact same way as the normal mode flex does, so 10 to 25 players. And finally, if you're a heroic raider in 5.4, then you will probably be a mythic raider in 6.0 and 6.1 and onwards. And the mythic raiding is a strict 20-man raid structure. So the reason why I think mythic raiding is so good in Warlords of Draenor is because when you've got this strict 20-man raid size, it opens up a lot of possibilities for the devs to really make a lot of unique fights on these harder difficulties that can assume that you have one of every class. I think it'll also make the race between guilds for the server first kills on certain bosses on mythic difficulties, and the worldwide races between guilds like Blood Legion and Method a lot more cool, because they've got the strict 20-man structure, and a lot of those guilds were 25-man in the past, but you've got guilds like Paragon who are raiding 10-man structures, and those races are pretty much two separate things, so we're going to see a lot more guilds competing with one another to try to get these world firsts. So another really cool thing about Mythic Raiding in Warlords of Draenor is the Mythic Raiders will get their own unique tier sets that do pretty much the exact same thing, but they've got a unique style to them. It's not just a color reskin like they've done in the past. They get their own unique style, and I've done a video on it going through all the normal, heroic, and mythic tier sets in Warlords of Draenor, so I'll link that in the description below. Anyway guys, that's all I got for today, so since this was such a short list, please post a comment below of something that you're really excited about in this expansion that maybe I left out. I definitely would love to hear what you guys have to say. Have a good one, guys.